Welcome to my latest podcast. I should say our latest podcast. John Abendroth here, PGA golf professional with Tom Spencer with CBS Sports and longtime partner with us, myself, on our local radio version of our golf coverage known as Hooked on Golf over the years. Good morning, Tom, and welcome.
Hey, John. Yeah, good to see you. We're still talking golf per usual, but there's one big event still on the calendar, and we're looking forward to the Masters coming November 12th through the 15th. But yeah, the PGA Tour keeps rolling along. Last season ended, and of course you segue into the new wraparound campaign, and here we go again.
Yeah, well, as the Masters is a commercial operation, so is part of this. So let me get the business part out of the way. The Zoomcast is sponsored by Baggy's Liquor in Millbrae. Since 1958, nearly a landmark. They have great beer, wine, and fine spirit deals. Drink responsibly. And by Original Joe's at Westlake, now offering indoor dining with their new patio as well. Out in part of the parking lot, they built a great patio, and they've got their wonderful to-go service. So we can now start branching out a wee bit, as you'd like to say here. And we like to think globally, but shop locally and all that. So always look forward to that. As you mentioned, Tom, looking forward to the Masters. I wanted to talk about the U.S. Open because we hadn't visited since then, but it'll be weird, and Masters will be back-to-back majors, and I'm sure somebody has thought of it, and you guys may even have a special on CBS, but is there like a bonus or a new name if somebody has the Masters Grand Slam, win both Masters back to back? That would be, boy, talk about history.
Yeah, and whoever wins the Masters this November is going to have a very short reign as champion. It's not going to be the usual pomp and circumstance with traveling around the globe and wearing the green jacket on interview shows. Of course, in the COVID world, that wouldn't really happen anyway, but it's going to be a short tenure. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Koepka won the PGA in St. Louis, which was an August version. And then in 19, they went to May. So he had a very short defense, but then he just took care of it and won it again at Bethpage. And then they went, of course, back to May at Harding Park, which was a one-off situation. They went back to August at Harding Park. That'll go back to May next year. So actually, for us at CBS, we have the next three majors, two Masters, and the PGA next spring. So looking forward to that stretch, obviously. But with Augusta coming in November, it'll be a lot of anticipation for it. Most people probably just looking forward to seeing what the golf course appears like in the fall. It'll be different, but I think the guys will be fired up for it, and I'm sure they will have the course, as usual, in immaculate condition.
And then you've got Shane Lowry that has held the Open trophy for will be 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
And that'll be odd. But let's talk about the U.S. Open, because there was an awful lot of hubaloo and Tiger and Phil were, there was a lot of talk about them as usual, and they came in with disappointing performances. But Bryson DeChambeau, what a performance! Kind of reshaping the game. And, a number of years ago, and I know you were probably on the radio show when I said this in the late 90s, maybe around 2000, I said, Tiger Woods cannot swing this aggressively and hard for a long period of time. And I think I related it to Snead playing into his 50s, Jack Nicklaus now playing into, when he was playing into his 50s. And now I think Bryson's the same way. I can't see him at 40 even swinging the way he is and having any, resolutive game, let alone what kind of condition his body would be in.
Right, and that's something that a lot of people are concerned about, but Bryson doesn't seem to be at the head of that list. He has goals, John, to continue to get stronger, continue to get bigger, continue to swing faster, and hit the ball farther. So, yeah, it may be to us a short-term method that leads to short-term success, but But DeChambeau is a guy that has a lot of plans in life for this game, and maybe some of it he's thinking of and coming up with not on the fly, but sort of a myopic perspective, and not thinking about what's it going to be like when I'm 35 or 40. Do I still want to play the game, that long? I question a little bit the modern golfers, say guys that are still under the age of 30, if they look at themselves as having careers that will last into their 50s and 60s. And there could be a lot of reasons for that. Maybe there's some burnout just from the pressure and the spotlight on the modern athlete. Maybe there's financial ramifications where you don't need to play the game into your 50s because you're secure, possibly. Of course, injuries. We've seen a lot of that with the modern young players, Jason Day, Rory McIlroy coming to mind, battled injuries off and on. Obviously, Tiger at the forefront of that list. So DeChambeau, he's working with a doctor in Denver who has a background around the NFL, and they have goals that they've set, and right now they're meeting them. But so far, you can't argue with what he's putting out on the golf course, because it has been incredibly impressive.
Yeah, and I know he could switch clubs right away, as he has often, but one other little dichotomy I thought about is that the way his golf clubs are set up with these, I think they're even called rebar shafts with hardly any bend, 5-degree driver, which is what the long drivers use often, that he has to swing hard to make those clubs perform. And that's sort of like a dog chasing his tail, that, he's got to swing like that. And there almost ought to be a warning label of the old, don't try this at home for, young kids and junior golfers that are out there. And I tell a lot of middle-aged golfers that, hey, don't watch the young bucks, watch the LPGA players and the smooth swingers, and even some of the senior players, rather than watching these young guys. So, anyway, it's very interesting times, and he sure made an impact.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Just two comments from me on that subject, John. I remember seeing Bryson. I had the good fortune to play in the Trans-Miss Amateur at Meadow Club in 2013, I believe it was. And DeChambeau won that tournament, victory there in Marin County as an amateur, had a great amateur career, won the U.S. Amateur, the NCAAs. But back then he was already a notch above his peers. And a lot of the guys that were in that tournament, of course, I'm not one of them, I missed the cut, but a lot of the guys that were in that tournament in contention are now on the PGA Tour. So he's been beating his peers for a long time. He comes on the PGA Tour, and he does win early, and he wins often. So even before this transformation, there was a lot of success for DeChambeau as a young player. The question is really, what is his goal? Does he want to continue to push the envelope? What are we physically capable of within our own games? And to your point about swinging within yourself, he's an outlier. There are only so many guys and girls that can swing with the type of speed that can generate power, that can distance themselves from the rest of the pack on average. So Bryson has found a method. He's got a very unique swing, as you can talk about. He's changed his body. He has the belief, and he's overpowering some pretty darn good classic golf courses. So the next step to see is how can he handle Augusta National? Now, let's not forget, you only hit your driver 14 times around. So you have to hit all the other clubs. You have to putt the ball 28 to 30 to 32 times on the PGA Tour, hopefully less if you're winning. So can Bryson's short game hold up and be in that upper echelon along with his driving and long game? I think it can, but that'll be probably the part of his game that takes the longest period of time, I would suspect, to really reach the elite level.
I guess 12 at Augusta with hitting a wedge or a gap wedge in there, that'd be a little easier hole than hitting a 7-iron like in the old days. So we'll see how that works out for him. A couple things back on the U.S. Open. I love the underdog stories. This year, because of no qualifiers, the USGA sort of handpicked players to come in based on their status, and one that really worked out great, Will Zalatoris, who had status on the Korn Ferry Tour. He ends up with a top 10 finish in the US Open that got him into the following PGA Tour week. He now has another top 10. And if he can kind of keep that rolling, he'll earn his status on the PGA Tour here pretty quickly if he hasn't already. So, and he was leading the money list on the Korn Ferry anyway. But as we are early in the year, his elevation wouldn't happen, or graduation wouldn't happen until, I guess, a year from now. But he could get I guess a field upgrade during the year if he keeps this rolling. So cool story for Will Zalatoris.
Yeah, Will's playing his golf down in Dallas these days, and our friend Tony Romo plays a lot of golf with him, and we were keeping an eye on Zalatoris. Once it became clear that DeChambeau was going to win the U.S. Open, we were on the air doing an NFL game that day. But once it became clear that Bryson was going to run away and hide, Tony's attention shifted to Zalatoris and how high he could finish. The COVID dynamic has played a role on the tour as far as exemptions and who gets in what. As an example, John, the Masters coming up in November, the field list is still being determined by what would have been a Masters in April. So in other words, players like Daniel Berger, Stuart Sink, who just won out Silverado a few weeks ago, they are right now not in the 2020 Masters. They will be in the 2021 version next April. Now, something could change. Maybe a player gets some kind of a special invite, but as it stands now, the field is set. The same thing applies with the Korn Ferry Tour and exemptions on the PGA Tour. It's a little bit confusing, but things are kind of morphing together here, where 2019-20 and 2020-21 are kind of like one and the same. So a guy like Zalatoris, if you're playing great golf, things take care of themselves, as you know. And I would think exemptions would be offered to him, and he'll have the opportunity to get out with the big boys soon. But he's proven, he's not a big guy, that he can handle the spotlight with the big time players, so to speak, and we're looking forward to seeing how his game translates in the years to come.
That's Tom Spencer. I'm John Abendroth, and we're talking golf here. One other comment on Phil Mickelson. Phil's really become quite the media star in the social media world. On the Saturday of the U.S. Open, he tweeted out a picture of himself on the couch watching golf on Saturday. It says he had missed the cut. And Jeopardy, he became the final Jeopardy question last week. The question was, who's the most successful professional athlete over 50? And nobody got the answer correct. One woman wrote Phil M, but didn't remember the rest of his name, or couldn't spell it, or whatever. I got it right, by the way. Rose, my wife, was very impressed. But Phil tweeted out, he says, "I guess I've made it, because I'm now a final Jeopardy question, but I got a long ways to go because nobody got the question right." So leave it to Phil to have a cool perspective on it, and a real light note. So kind of cool. And he went on the next week to win his first foray into the Champions Tour, and Jim Furyk wins 2 in a row, his first 2 out of the box. So, it's interesting. You spoke earlier about the young guys, maybe blowing out their bodies potentially, and not worrying about, what it's like when they're 50. And here these guys, it's great to see Mickelson and Furyk, 2 of the all-time leading money winners, still at their age, to support the Champions Tour. Very cool there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Training is so different around sports, and golf's no exception, of course, but maybe it sounds a little critical to say that young players are going to get hurt or burned out. The reality is young players have probably never been stronger and in better shape than they are right now. So odds are that many of the folks that we focus on in this game of golf are going to have long careers if they want them, because they understand how to train, how to take care of themselves. The access to information is so much better. The trainers and doctors themselves have such great knowledge to pass along. You obviously have access to channels like a YouTube, for instance, where you can type in just about anything and learn how other experts might pass along their advice. So that's the good news. That's the great thing. Back to Phil for a second. The Phil and Tiger show, John, is winding down, as we know, where both of them collectively are carrying the sport of golf. Now, they can have outlier weeks. Tiger at the Masters, of course, incredible, might be the exclamation point of his career. He then followed up, by the way, by winning in Japan a few months later. So his winning ways may not be over. Mickelson, as you point out, just won on the PGA Tour Champions. But the consistency year in, year out, week in, week out, tournament to tournament is just not there. So we have to accept that those two guys are stepping off the stage here soon. And who's going to step up and really fill the void? We will see. But they are two dynamic figures in sports, and they are not going away from our consciousness. And Mickelson's found a way to do it with social media, and who knows what else he's got in store. And Tiger is still trying to figure out ways to win major number 16, and we'll see what he comes up with at Augusta in a few weeks, if he can look like he's feeling a little better and, more importantly, playing better as that tournament comes around.
Yeah, one last topic, and I'll call this breaking news. It was made public this week that after the PGA at Harding Park in San Francisco, that they're still working on a regular PGA Tour event with potentially Steph Curry as the face of the event. That'll be a every year tournament in the fall. And if that were to happen, Harding will give up the President's Cup in 2025 to get into the cycle of a once a year PGA Tour event. So that's still being considered and looked at by the city and all the dignitaries, et cetera. So it'll be interesting to see how that one shakes out.
Yeah, I hope it happens. Harding Park was the star of the year as far as golf courses go. The PGA was an amazing event. Feels like a long time ago now. But Colin Morikawa winning there, and just the dynamic. Jim Nantz said something recently, how being on the air and documenting it, but watching the visuals that our director Steve Milton and his crew came up with, it felt like a movie being shot in San Francisco with the drone footage and the fog and the cypress trees and just the condition of the course. Everything about it was so amazing. I think about that week, and then of course, really the next week, the fire started, and here we are having this conversation today as we go into October, and they're still around. So our hearts go out to everybody affected, and our thanks to everyone that's trying to fight them off. So anyway, the PGA was an amazing event, John, and I think Harding Park certainly showed that it can handle the best players in the game, and it can handle the beginning players in the game, everyone in between, the full spectrum. It's a fabulous place, and I hope it's in the spotlight for many, many years to come.
Well said. And yeah, like you say, it's like a movie. So fun stuff. Tom, thanks so much for your time and your perspective, and we'll catch up again soon. And the best to your family, and hope you're able to get out and get a little golf in. I'm actually going to play today, so been a little while, but I guess it's like riding a bike, they say, or is riding a bike like playing golf. You don't forget. So we'll see about that.
Either way, you'll do great. Have fun out there, John, and enjoyed being with you.
All right, thanks so much. There's Tom Spencer. I'm John Abendroth, and if you missed any of our other ones, you can go to YouTube and look up John Abendroth interview. Good one with Gary Player months ago, and a couple of months ago, Rocco Mediate, and a couple others. So we'll see you next time.